Good morning, everybody, and thanks for choosing Fox 10 News on this Saturday morning. I'm Steve Alexander. Well, of course, we wake up this time of the morning. We want to find out the latest on those coordinates for Laura, and everybody's watching that very closely.
Yeah, we got those two tropical storms out there in the Gulf right now. Marco became a named system last night, so if you happen to miss that, it's not a tropical depression anymore. So we have Marco, we have Laura, two tropical systems, both headed for the Gulf of Mexico. Here they are in 3D form. Oh, I appeared in there. All right, so here's what we're looking at. First off, that's Laura over here around Puerto Rico, and that is Marco over here just off the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. Here's what those tracks of the two look like. Yeah, this is just wild. And we're going to be looking at some strange interactions here in the next few days as we watch these two systems work their way towards the Gulf of Mexico. First off, there's Marco. Winds right now 50 miles an hour. So this one's been gaining strength overnight. It's found itself a really good area for it right here off the Yucatan Peninsula. It's moving to the north-northwest right now at 12 miles per hour. So here's the official forecast track for this morning. It's going to move north and eventually make some sort of a northwest turn. How close exactly it gets to us is still a question point at this time with Marco. You can see though the little symbols there, staying tropical storm strength, and what the National Hurricane Center is seeing there is that there is some wind shear that storm will have to deal with, and hopefully that will limit some of its strengthening as it makes that turn off towards Texas or Louisiana. All right, now there's Laura. Laura is a weaker storm this morning, winds of 40 miles an hour. It's basically sitting on top of Puerto Rico, so it is tracking a little bit farther to the south than what we were looking at yesterday, which overall may be some good news because it'll hopefully keep it over the islands. The longer it can stay over those islands, the better off we are. It's moving to the west, 27 miles an hour. This one's cooking along, so it's going to catch up here. It's going to work its way most likely right down the pipe there on Cuba, and once again, that's helpful, limiting its strengthening. But once it finds its way into the Gulf of Mexico, that wind shear that Marco will be dealing with will mostly be gone, and it'll find a really good opportunity for development. So even if it comes off of Cuba as a fairly weak storm, it could ramp up pretty quickly here over the Gulf. The good news is it will be moving swiftly, so that will help because the less time over the water, obviously, the less time it has to strengthen. So we'll be watching that very closely right now. The Hurricane Center has it as a 85 mile per hour category 1 storm there. That will be Wednesday early morning hours. So they'll be looking at a late Wednesday morning, maybe Wednesday around lunchtime landfall. And you can see right now they have the center of that track somewhere around Louisiana, but we're still included in that official track. And then it goes all the way over to Houston. And I'll just point out too that most of the models are leaning more to a western path with this. Doesn't mean that's going to stay that way, but hopefully it does for us. Not good news for folks in Texas because Marco and this storm, you can have Marco one day, then literally the storm coming in right behind it on the next day with Laura. Crazy stuff. All right, Doppler radar this morning, pretty quiet. So yeah, we actually have to talk about weather here across the area just for Saturday. Nothing's going to be really weird about today. It's going to be pretty typical summertime day. It's going to be hot. It's going to be humid. Temperatures up around 90. There'll be an occasional spotty shower or thunderstorm around throughout the day. So that's once again, pretty typical stuff here for our Saturday. How does it look beyond? We'll go deeper into these. We'll check out some of the models and see what we're looking at here with both Marco and with Laura, and take a deep dive coming up in just a few minutes.
Well, Dauphin Island is used to this, and they're not taking the double tropical threat lightly. They're making sure that residents are prepared by issuing hurricane reentry passes this weekend. Mayor Jeff Collier says many residents' passes may have expired over the months, so they want to give them enough time to renew. Anyone who has to renew can do so today from 10 o'clock in the morning until 2 p.m. They can also do so on Sunday starting at noon until 4. Because of COVID-19, though, there could be a slight wait, they say. Since they are limiting the number of people allowed inside, that's the reason. Temperature checks and masks are required.
If we have a situation that access to the island is cut off or limited, that will help them get back in an appropriate time.
Residents should double check any passes that they already have to make sure that they are up to date. There's a lot of uncertainty with the system, definitely, and what it's going to bring to the area and when. Vacation rentals are big business along the coast. Early next week, around 75% of places that one vacation rental company manages are booked. Many likely coming from out of town, they say, and not familiar with the tropical weather.
We want to make sure that we're keeping a close eye so that we can let our owners know and let our guests know what's happening, but we're not taking any actions at the moment.
The Baldwin County Emergency Management Agency is watching the tropical trouble closely. They're in constant contact with the National Weather Service to get the most up-to-date information. They say this weekend is the time to prepare, though, for any impacts. The beach warning flags, of course, will be important to watch this weekend. Red flags could start flying in the next few days. The National Weather Service says there will be also a high rip current risk, and that's something to watch starting on Sunday. Meantime, Gulf Shores' mayor and city council are holding a special city council meeting today. This is to talk about the tropical systems in the Gulf. That meeting is to talk about the possible need, especially for a response to an emergency weather condition. That meeting will take place at noon. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey is issuing a statement ahead of next week's tropical weather and also the upcoming municipal elections. It reads in part, quote, "The Alabama Gulf Coast is no stranger to the unpredictability and potentially damaging effects of tropical weather. As we continue keeping a close watch on the storm systems approaching the United States, we should do what we can now to be prepared. Until we feel more certain about an imminent threat of dangerous weather, we will not make changes to the elections at this time. However, we are having discussions and making preparations should we decide that moving the election or making any adjustments is necessary," unquote. If you want to read the governor's full statement, all you have to do is log on to our website at fox10tv.com. Monroe County, Florida. It's the state's most southernmost county, and it has declared a state of local emergency ahead of Tropical Storm Laura. The county has ordered a mandatory evacuation for people who live on boats or on mobile homes, in mobile homes and campers. And as reporter Maciela Burgos explains, business owners in the area are also taking precautions.
People are taking advantage of a beautiful summer day in Isla Mirada. And then there are people like Ernesto Machado who can't keep their eyes off the forecast, knowing Tropical Storm Laura is likely headed this way.
Depending on where we at in that cone, we make those decisions.
Ernesto owns A1A Water Sports, and he may have to get some of his rentals back early and closed until the storm moves past this area.
We have to thread a thin line here. We don't want to prematurely pick up the boats and the storm misses us altogether, but we also want to err on the side of caution.
County officials are getting ready now for this storm. On Friday, they announced there are mandatory evacuations in Monroe County. So anyone who lives in a mobile home, RV, travel trailer, camper, or on a boat should evacuate.
It hasn't really formed, and there's the question about the intensity. And it's a little scary, to be honest with you.
They're asking residents and tourists to be prepared. They are confident they will be.
Anything that can fly around in your yard, bring it in.
In 2017, Ernesto says Hurricane Irma destroyed his business, forcing him to move to a new location. That is why he is not willing to take any chances.
Normally you see these storms build in strength from far away at a rapid pace, and this one is not. And from the last storms that have happened, they have picked up intensity last minute. And that's our fear, being underprepared.
And with those two tropical systems in the Gulf, the Mobile County Health Department is sending out advice about preparations, and they're also sending out advice about what you need to know if we are affected by the storms. There's a change in message this year, though, when it comes to hurricane shelters. Health Department officials are urging you to use them only as a very last resort because of COVID. They say people should try to find somewhere safe to stay outside the cone of uncertainty. However, the health department does say that it has been working with the American Red Cross all to look at possible shelters, but how many could open and where depends on factors like the category of the storm and warnings.
We've been to the schools that could potentially be opened. We've looked at having a general population area, a high-risk area for those that may be over 60, and then, of course, somebody who comes in exhibiting symptoms, we have a designated area for them as well.
However, health department officials say there will be a medical needs shelter, but it's considered a shelter of last resort for minor medical oversight. Of course, you can count on Fox 10 News to keep you up to date on all of the breaking weather alerts this hurricane season. We're expecting changes to both of these tropical systems over the next couple of days. It seems like they always do change, so be sure to tune in to Fox 10 News all weekend long. Baldwin County Superintendent Eddie Tyler is considering additional crowd limitations at high school football games. This after being, quote, disappointed in what he saw at Thursday night's game in Fairhope. The Pirates defeated the Toros 45-34 in a matchup with the two Baldwin County high schools. But there were some notable crowd concerns because, despite, I should say, of health guidelines and efforts to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. Tyler said Fairhope's win was, quote, overshadowed by the lack of compliance in wearing masks and social distancing. He went on to say, I am considering what next steps we will take to comply with the governor's orders to protect our teams and to protect our community. After witnessing the lack of leadership from parents firsthand, I suspect this game will not be the only one of the state lacking compliance this week, but Baldwin County Public Schools will not tolerate this behavior. We had already developed additional restrictions, which we are ready to implement. These would include the further reduction in capacity, discipline of students, and denial of entry, and the cancellation of games. Before issuing any new directions and directives, I am waiting to see how the hundreds of other games around the South handle those challenges. To read Tyler's full statement, just head on to fox10tv.com. And speaking of COVID, U.S. Surgeon General Jerome Adams has visited Alabama, and he's actually pretty positive about COVID-19's progress report. New data indicates positivity results as well as case incidents and also hospitalizations all are on the decline.
I want you to know that there's good news. Alabama is in the green zone for testing, conducting over 62,000 tests last week. And that positivity rate is coming down. The case incidence is coming down. Hospitalizations are coming down. And these are things that we track on the coronavirus task force.
Adams says that Alabama is the only state in the country's coronavirus red zone headed in the right direction. And he credits Governor Kay Ivey for implementing that statewide mask order. Officials at Syracuse University, meantime, are taking action against students there. Students who they say broke rules regarding COVID-19. The university just handed down interim suspensions to 23 students who were part of a large gathering on campus. Physics professor Walter Freeman says he witnessed the gathering.
It was a lot of students making a rapid exit, and when they had left, there were 5 or 6 DPS officers there. They were the community service officers rather than the peace officers, and it was pretty clear that they had dispersed the group of students, saying, hey, y'all really shouldn't be here.
And school officials in Syracuse hope the suspensions serve as a deterrent for future gatherings on campus there.